Hi, I'm Clover. You've probably already seen my last video on jokes, which has now been privated due to its lack of subtitles. For this video, I have included the transcript in the comments, and if you cannot find it, please feel free to message me for the transcript if you wish to read it at your own pace or want to use a text-to-speech because of my struggle to talk. Also, I have a speech impediment, which may cause it to sound like I am mumbling or speak way too fast to be understood. This is also why I have included the transcript because that was something commonly spoken about in the comments of the previous video. Lastly, please do not berate me in the comments for my lack of subtitles in the original video. It was a mistake on my behalf because I cannot subtitle it on the program I use due to the large amount of elements I would need to use. I will try to subtitle this video for as long as I can, and try to make it so that it'll be accessible to as many people as possible, but if my program begins to lag beyond being able to use it, I will have to remove captions past some point and say to read the transcript. Once again, I apologize for my behavior and will not let it happen again. Let's start off by saying that I show bias towards minorities in this video, and I have a consistent record of calling out ranters whose takes fly a bit too close to being ableist, transphobic, homophobic, etc. I take any sort of hate speech seriously, and secondly, I don't want any harassment directed towards jocks because I am fully anti-harassment. I don't think anyone should be harassed regardless of their beliefs or anything related. I don't tolerate that shit, and if you're someone who is a fan of me and harasses individuals, I do not associate myself with you, and I don't want you to associate with me. Call me obsessed all you want, but I don't think people who are ableist, transphobic, and homophobic should have a platform. If you attempt to rebuttal me by saying, oh, but Jax is gay, gay people can be transphobic and homophobic at the same time. I don't know if Jax has any disabilities or anything, but I won't use him to critique him in any sense. But if he doesn't, his claims consistently about ableism are quite odd. I cannot diagnose any strangers online because I'm not a licensed psychologist, so I won't dive super into this. I don't watch any Jocks videos. I don't watch every single Jocks video, so I don't know if he has any disabilities that he's made public. Please let me know in the comments if he has, please, and thank you. I am somebody with multiple physical and mental disabilities. I am someone who uses gender sus pronouns. I am someone who uses neopronouns. I am someone who uses microlabels. I am a fictionkin. I am someone who Yumi ships. I am a recovering dark tripper. I am AFAB. I am transgender. I am gay. I do feel as if I have a decent say in what Jock's takes are, as I cover a majority of the minorities that Jock talks about. Do I need to provide proof of any of my disabilities? Fuck no. I do think that asking someone for diagnostic proof of their disorder is insanely weird and invasive. You will get blocked if you do this shit with me. Lastly, I don't think that Jocks has the intent to be ableist, transphobic, or homophobic, but it can leak into everything, and I don't think we should hold him, and we shouldn't hold him accountable because of that. But if you're ableist by accident, you're still ableist. I do agree with some of Jock's takes, but not all of them. I think he needs to do actual research instead of barging headfirst into his takes because it's clear he doesn't actually know what he's talking about. Now, let's finally get into the actual video. This was added in later in the script because I've done a bit more digging and I don't know where to actually put this. Jax is transmed, an extremely harmful ideology where you think that people need surgery, hormone treatment, dysphoria, and other things to be actually transgender. The video that is still up to date that aligns the most with this ideology is this video.
You're not gonna pass as a trans man wearing makeup and skirts. This is so stupid. I need to say obvious shit like that. So whenever I see posts like, tips for trans guys, and they say some stuff like, don't wear long hair, dresses, etc., comments are flooded with, so I need to stop wearing dresses and crop tops? Clothes don't have gender. I will continue wearing push-up bras and skirts while thinking I'm a man. Isn't it obvious you're not gonna look like a real man while wearing feminine stuff? No one is telling you to stop looking like you do, but if you want to actually pass, then stop dressing like a woman.
But lest we forget the deleted video where he claimed he would misgender you if you didn't pass as a trans person. Video number 1, Fictionkin video.
Fictionkins don't make sense. No, you weren't a fictional character in your past life. No, you're not, in fact, a fictional character now. If you're just making silly jokes like, I'm 100% Woody, real, then okay, because it's a joke. But believe it or not, people who genuinely identify as fictional characters exist, and are so deep in their delusions that they're convinced they are their favorite character. This is too woke for me. It is delusion, and enhancing this behavior will make that person even more delusional. If they for real think they're a character, from a show that came out years after they were born, tell them they're not. Accepting fictionkins is just harming those.
Let me start this off with a description of what fictionkins are. I'm going to be using sources and then linking them at the bottom of the screen, or if you're reading the transcript, they'll be linked by what using Wikipedia does. It'll be obvious, don't worry. Fictionkin are people who believe that they involuntarily and immutably share the identity and self of a fictional character. They believe that they are a fictional character in some particular way. Digest that information for a moment and then notice how it says involuntary. Jocks has made the claim multiple times that you choose to be a fictionkin. You cannot choose to be a fictionkin, but you can embrace the fact you're a fictionkin and pride yourself with it. There's a huge difference. It's like how you can't choose to be part of the LGBTQIA community, but you can choose to pride yourself with your labels. They're very similar in fashion. Jocks mentioned how you cannot be a fictional character in your past life, so I want to bring up the washing machine theory that so many people use. If you don't know the washing machine theory, it's basically you cannot be a washing machine in your past life because washing machines aren't sentient. So you can't be a fictional character in your past life because that fictional character isn't sentient. Now, I fully understand where this take comes from, but majority of fiction tend to believe in the multiverse theory, which means the washing machine could have been alive in another universe, which by correlation, the fictional character could have been alive in another universe. This theory also gets debunked by non-spiritual fiction kids, which are simply heavily relating to the character in some sense, to the point that you are so similar to the character you just like to call them yourself. Jocks also says, believe it or not, people who are generally identify as fictional characters exist and are so deep in their delusions that they are convinced they are their favorite character. I firmly believe that Jocks is mixing up what IRLs and fictions are, as they are very different but very similar. IRLs are people who are actually delusional. They genuinely, full-heartedly believe that they are that character and are likely in psychosis. They need help instead of being called crazy and delusional online. This is my wokeness speaking, but can we stop using the term delusional to describe people that are out of the norm? Thank you. Number 2, the grooming video.
Stop crying about being groomed if you lied about your age. If you were talking with an adult, let's say 19 years old, and said you were 18 whilst you were way younger, don't be surprised that they wanted to have a more intimate relationship. They asked for my nude pics. I was 14. And if that person knew you were actually a child, they most likely wouldn't ask you for that. You're not the victim in this situation. You put yourself in a possible danger of being groomed by lying to that person.
I saw a lot of comments saying, it's right, but it feels so wrong. That's because it is wrong. The take is wrong. It's a terrible, awful take. We need to put our two neurons together and realize what grooming actually is. I am a grooming victim, not once, but twice. But 8 separate times I have been groomed. I know what the definition of grooming is, but many may not. A definition of grooming is when a person builds a relationship with a child, young person, or adult who's at risk so they can abuse them and manipulate them into doing things. The abuse is usually sexual or financial, but it can also include other illegal acts. First of all, grooming is not always sexual, how it was mentioned in the definition, but I want to talk about how Jocks had in the video. If you were talking with an adult, let's say 19 years old, and you say you're 18, whilst you're way younger, don't be surprised that they wanted to have a more intimate relationship. Jocks, are you a fucking moron or are you an idiot? Let me preface this by saying 14-year-olds and 18-year-olds don't act alike in their maturity levels at all. I know this because I watched a discourse between a 14-year-old and an 18-year-old once and it was genuinely insane to watch. No clue what the fuck was happening there, but the 14-year-old quickly shot the conclusions and didn't handle the situation well at all, even saying that the adult was a pedophile groomer for having POCD and accused him of being an entirely separate person because they had the same mannerisms. Would you accuse me and my boyfriend of being the same person because we act the same? No. A 19-year-old would not believe they are talking to an 18-year-old if the person behind the screen is 14. While an insanely mature 14-year-old may act close to 16, they probably wouldn't act like an 18-year-old, or a legal adult for that matter. Regardless, unless age is entirely confirmed, they should never exchange sexual photos, texts, etc. The minor is still a victim in that situation as they cannot consent to being shown pornographic imagery. Children are children, and reasonably, you cannot hold them accountable for doing things children would do. While as a result of their own actions, children do stupid things, and we cannot blame them, but we should offer genuine support to them instead. Saying they cannot come out crying about it diminishes genuine victims of grooming. And let's bring up the non-sexual part of this. They say they lied about their age and were groomed non-sexually. Would you say that they were in the wrong for lying about their age? Let's say the persecutor tried to get the person to drop all their friends and only rely on them, and they did. Would you blame that on the minor, or would you blame that on the adult? I know you made a video saying stop putting words into my mouth, but this is such an easy takeaway to what you originally said. You said that lying about your age made the fact you were groomed a lot harder to believe and or take seriously. Video number 3, the misandry video.
Misandry exists, and there's no point of denying it. If you think it doesn't, then you're genuinely slow and obsessed with being the victim. If someone says they hate women, it's misogynistic, right? But if someone says they hate men, it's not misandrist all of a sudden? Of course, misandry is way less common due to the fact that as women were way more oppressed in the history and had way less laws just because they were women, but there's no point of saying that misandry doesn't exist, because it sure does.
Misandry doesn't exist. The correct term would be prejudice against men. Men aren't systemically oppressed. Women are, hence the term misogyny. Video number 4, the microlabels video.
Just because I'm gay doesn't mean I need to support everything LGBT does. Just because I happen to like men doesn't mean I need to support microlabels or xenopronouns. Just because people using them are LGBT too. I'm so tired of the stop attacking your own community argument. When I say I don't support xenopronouns, it's so shit, because just because I like men doesn't mean I'm required to call you pup self or think kitty gender is valid. I obviously won't harass you because of that, but I most certainly won't use any xenopronouns or unnecessary microlabels.
I know I love saying the definitions of words into my response to videos, but I feel like it's always so important to give context as to what something is. Where's a microlabel, you may ask? A microlabel is a label for some form of gender identity or sexual orientation that falls under or otherwise overlaps with a broader term. Microlabels tend to be described as hyperspecific, meaning they describe a very specific experience of a gender, sexuality, such, etc. A microlabel may help someone find their specific identity. For example, a transgender man may feel extremely feminine in their identity, but still be transgender female to male. They could possibly find a microlabel to help them define themselves. For example, Rosboy. They could call themselves a transgender Rosboy, as it is a label defining a man who is feminine in their identity. You can claim unnecessary microlabels, but what is a needed microlabel, Jocks? Would you call an unnecessary microlabel something like bunny gender? Because I believe that would be a necessary label for some people. If it doesn't matter to you, it may matter to someone else. Okay, comparing a xenogender to an accessibility aid may sound insane, but I'm going somewhere with this. Let's say you have chronic wrist pain, and you can barely do certain things, like, for example, play guitar. Would you find a chord player helpful if you wanted to learn guitar? Yes, you would, because your hand would struggle to play the keys, but a chord player which the press would make it easier for you. But you don't have chronic pain, so you would find it weird that somebody would need this without looking any further into it. This is similar to gender identities in a way, not entirely, but it may be quite similar. A gender identity can be insanely affected by neurodivergence, so it can be more complex. You don't need the mobility aid, so you can find it weird when you see it at first. You don't need the micro label, so you may find them weird when you see them. Also, can we please talk about the caption of the video? It says, "Yes, we're both oppressed, but I'm not required to call you puppy because you're somehow LGBTQ too." What do you mean somehow LGBTQ? No, Jamie, what do you mean by this? Let's go into the next video because I wanted to make sure they were closely related. Video number 5, Xenogenders, Xenopronouns video.
If you don't call me my xenopronouns, you're transphobic in the nicest way possible. No. Xenopronouns were made to mock transgender people, with the thought that if a girl can use he, him pronouns, then I can use strawberry pronouns. If you have people around you that are comfortable in using those pronouns for you, then I'm happy for you, but I won't be doing that. It's not grammatically correct whatsoever, and can't be used in many languages. But it's about my comfort, not yours. Both sides need to be comfortable while talking. If you use they, them, it, or she or he pronouns, I'd be more than happy to use them for you. But snowflake self is not a pronoun, but a nickname.
You are in fact transphobic if you refuse to call someone their preferred gender identity, actually. I'm a transgender man. Would you call me she over and over? If you did, that would be transphobic. If I would say, let's say, puppy gender and went strictly by pup/puppy, not going by binary pronouns, and let's say you repeatedly called me she, he, they, that would be transphobic. It does not matter the gender identity. If it doesn't harm anyone, it literally does not matter. Not calling them by their preferred pronouns or preferred gender identity, you are transphobic. Xenogenders are a microlabel of being transgender. They are made so that people with specific identities tied to objects, concepts, characters, etc. can get their gender identity explained easier, as they are a fairly simple concept to grasp. Jocks mentioned that they were made to mock transgender people. They shut the fuck up. They were never created for that intent, and I'm bold enough to say that Jocks is fucking stupid for saying that. He said the xenopronouns aren't grammatically correct and cannot be used in other languages. They were meant to be used mostly in English. Also, Jocks, you can't spell oppressed. I generally don't give a shit about being grammatically correct if you can't spell that. Minor correction on you, Jocks, because if you did your research, you would obviously, which you obviously don't do, because since you easily butt into conversations and say shit that don't make sense, you seem to be talking about neopronouns where we discuss xenopronouns. I'm here to give you a quick lesson between neopronouns, xenopronouns, and xenogenders, since it's clear you don't know the difference. Neopronouns. They are pronouns that go against binary pronouns, but aren't connected to a gender. This user doesn't use a xenogender. Xenopronouns. These are pronouns that go against binary pronouns and are connected to a gender. This user has a xenogender. Xenogender. This is a gender that goes against basic feminine, masculine, androgynous standards of society. They are centered around a concept, animal, objects, show, character, etc. Back on the topic, he makes the claim both sides need to be uncomfortable when talking. Are you genuinely uncomfortable by xenopronouns? Or do you want to say that so you can excuse your actions? It's not a good excuse at all, really. I do believe both sides need to be comfortable in chatting, but I don't think pronouns should make someone uncomfortable unless it's something that triggers the individual, like syringes or blood/gore related pronouns. And because of that, you can just not talk with them. or voice your opinions about how their pronouns make you uncomfortable. If you're going out of your way to intentionally misgender someone because you think their pronouns are stupid, that's transphobic. Do you meet shippers videos?
Hume shipping is actually so corny I can't pretend it's not. It's a coping mechanism. Everything can be a coping mechanism, and it doesn't make it less weird. If drawing yourself kissing a fictional character is fun for you and makes you happy, then do it. But I will think it's corny and cringe a little when I see a Hume shipper on my For You page. Disliking Hume shippers is ableist. Why are we using terms so important to shit like that? No, just because I find people shipping themselves with pixels corny and cringe doesn't mean I discriminate against disabled people. But lots of Hume shippers are autistic, and it still doesn't make it ableist to don't like them. Yes, being more obsessed with something is an autistic trait, because autistic people often have such strong interests they feel protective towards them. But stop using the word ableist for people who find shipping with random characters cringe.
Let me preface this by saying most Yumi shippers are not parasocial and know that their fictional other is fictional. The ones that think their fictional others genuinely love them and do not think they're fictional are actually parasocial and need help for what they're feeling. We should not shame them, we should help them. Yes, Yumi shipping can be corny or cringy from an outsider's point of view. I think any coping mechanism someone doesn't understand can be seen as corny. Like how Jax is commonly made fun of fictional characters, which are commonly a coping mechanism, believe it or not. You're being harmful by actively saying you dislike female shippers. You aren't critiquing an inanimate thing like a piece of art. You are critiquing a community of people, which can hurt weaker individuals, which are far more prone to being damaged by unwanted criticism. I'm not going to say it's ableist to dislike female shippers. I'm going to say it's ableist to repeatedly bash on coping mechanisms, which has been proven and encouraged by therapists to work. I don't think Jock studies whatever he rants about, and really just defends himself by saying, "You guys want hot takes until I give an actual hot take." At least his fan base says so. I'm not going to object by saying most human shippers are autistic, because we already spoke about this in the video, but I will be using something similar to it. Most human shippers are autistic, of course, and because of this, they will feel more protective about what they love dearly, because neurodivergent individuals are more prone to showing attachment to something. Constantly bashing on autistic individuals' interests and coping mechanisms is ableist, actually. It does break my heart to tell you this, Jocks, but making a claim and then not defending yourself on it does not work. You say that you say stop using ableist for such a small thing, and then claim that people saying misandry doesn't exist are trying so hard to be the victim. You're being a hypocrite. It reminds me of someone I personally know. Anyways, you are saying by disliking human shippers isn't ableist, and I'm going to say it again. Relentlessly bashing someone's coping mechanism is ableist. Imagine you coped with severe emotional and mental abuse by human shipping, and suddenly people started saying it was corny, weird, and parasocial as hell. Would you not feel a bit distressed? I certainly would, and I certainly am. As I said at the start of the video, I am a human shipper and I'm neurodivergent. I feel extreme distress when someone says that I'm being parasocial, corny, and weird because I recognize that my fictional other is fictional. My conclusion on this is that Jax is ableist, transphobic, and homophobic, and doesn't do any research on the topic he speaks about. As he speaks about them so improperly and vague, it makes me feel like as if he has no idea what he's even talking about. I also find it extremely odd he's continuously speaking up about transgender issues like xenopronouns and xenogenders, well, from my knowledge, he's not transgender. Secondly, he keeps practicing on coping mechanisms that he does not use and has never claimed to use a day in his life, so he does not know how it works, and yet he acts as if he does, and proceeds to rant about how corny and weird they are. Third, I want to remind everyone it's still transphobic to not call people their preferred gender identity. I don't care. We need to start being rad and loose instead of go die because their gender identity is corny to you. Head up, Riding Close is not queer, it is simply accepting everyone into the LGBTQIA community, regardless of if you understand their identity or not, as long as the labels are not harming anybody. Thank you for listening or reading, whatever you did. I apologize for the length of this, and I'm passionate about deplatforming people who don't deserve a platform and just wish that we can all love each other. I'm Clover, and before I leave, I'm here to remind you being realistic doesn't give you an excuse to be an asshole.